What you hoped for is laughing in your face, and your very soul staggers under the weight of futility.
Welcome to the show. Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Have you ever felt completely obliterated? Not just disappointed, but obliterated, where what you built crumbles. This isn't garden variety frustration. It's like the deep night of the soul where resistance grows fangs. You know what I'm talking about? The voices say, who do you think you were anyway? Well, today we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to go stand right in the middle of it and stare it down. And then we're going to figure out how to find the spark to reset it all to zero so you can rise again. Welcome to your ultimate life. We spend a lot of time on this show with myself and with guests talking about creating the ultimate life. And you know from many episodes, my commitment is to reach 300 million people with a message. And the message is summarized WIPOS. Worth, identity, possibility, ownership, sovereignty. If you were convinced of your infinite power, if you believed you were a child of God and that you mattered and that you could change the world, and if you owned that truth, you'd act differently. Now, when you own WIPOS, you then can create purpose, prosperity, and joy. But today, we're going to start where we sometimes are, and that is smack down, blown down, flat on your back, or flat on your face, on the street, when something or some things terrible, unexplainable, unexpected have blown you out. Maybe your dreams are burned to ashes. Maybe your business has completely failed. Maybe your partner's left you. Maybe there was terrible betrayal. Maybe the Revenue Service, IRS or CRA in Canada or wherever you live, has taken all your money. Like maybe that's happened. So that's where we're going to start. We're not going to pretend that you're starting on an even keel. We're going to start at the bottom. Because at least once, and maybe more than once, maybe several times, you're going to be there. You're going to live there. You're going to find yourself feeling abandoned, alone, flat out, no way forward, busted ass on the street. Maybe you've tried something over and over again, and finally you buckled down. Can't do it. So what about that? Well, it's more than a failure. I'm calling it obliteration. You can call it anything you want, but the echoes of what you are trying to build ring hollow in your ears like they're mocking you and saying it was all for nothing. Sometimes we talk about that softly and we say, well, I'm trying really hard and it just doesn't seem to work. When truly what's happening in your head is, I suck, it can't work, I'm finished. What am I doing? That kind of language. Well, let's talk about how that, not how it happens, it just happens. Maybe it was because you did something stupid, or maybe somebody else did something stupid. It might be the result of your best efforts and things just didn't work. I want to talk to you about how resistance comes into this, because we all know how it is to get failed, how to get to fail, and fail spectacularly. You launched something, poured your heart and soul in, and nobody cared. Or worse, people laughed. Well, when you think about what to do next, like, what am I going to do now? It's difficult. When you're in the middle of that, it's like, who cares? What is there left to do? And when you even think about getting up, starting again, trying to collect yourself in the rubble, all that stuff, the first thing you do is run into a massive brick wall. Usually it's metaphorical. And there's a series of books that I really like by an author, Stephen Pressfield, who you might know. He's written some spectacular nonfiction. Fiction, he wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. He wrote The Glories of War or something like that, some books about Alexander the Great. Fabulous historical novels and some fiction. They're really good. But the series, so recommend him as an author, but the series I'm talking about is the War of Art series. It starts with the War of Art and then goes on with Turning Pro, and I think there's 5 in the series. Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit. And there's another one in there. And the final one, I think, is called The Artist's Journey, which is like the hero's journey, except the artist's journey starts where the hero's journey ends, is his supposition or his starting point. But anyway, he personifies, he anthropomorphizes, basically, a thing called the resistance. And the resistance is that the collection of things in your heart, in your soul, in your mind that say you suck. It is the thing that detours you a little off, pulls you 2% off target, 5%, 10%, or tears the whole day down. And often it shows up innocently. Well, I know I need to do this, but this is almost as important and it's easier. So I'm going to go do that. If you're in business, you sidetrack on building websites or logo design and, fiddling with stuff instead of doing what needs to happen in the business, making contacts, finding prospects, serving your clients, whatever it is, right? Or you can get sidetracked with personal issues. I don't feel like it today. I don't really feel that good. And on and on. Do you know how many star athletes or performers perform anyway and just go after it day after day, show after show, no matter what they feel like? Well, all of them, or they wouldn't be where they are. So I'm not trying to turn you into that, except you can if you want. But where we're starting is flat on your ass. And the first thing that shows up when you even lift your head up to look around and survey the damage is the resistance. And the resistance is that same voice. Why were you trying? You can't do this now. What in the world are you thinking about? How can you possibly recover from this? They're all going to laugh their asses off and you're finished. You can't show your face. You had such promise, and the truth, you suck anyway. All of that stuff characterizes the resistance, and the net effect is a 50-ton weight on your chest that prevents you from getting up and doing anything. You know what it's like. You want to stay in bed all day. You don't return calls. You don't get up. And I'm not talking about clinical depression, although it can be that. It can lead there, and it can border on that, even if that's not a regular occurrence in your life. Obliteration does that to you. Believe me, I know. Side story. I remember the day I went in the bank, was trying to withdraw $400 or $500 so I'd have some cash to go do a couple things. And the bank manager came out. I filled up my little slip and turned it in a few years ago because you don't do that anymore. But the bank manager came out and said, "I'm sorry, we can't give you any money." And I said, "What are you talking about? All of your bank accounts, plural, are zero." And he brought me a letter from the Internal Revenue Service in the United States where they had impounded every cent I had. I was flat broke. Every account was empty, zero, gone, none. I sat down and thought, what am I going to do? I am flat ass broke. And as I looked around, stuff, I didn't even begin to pay the debt that they said I owed. So anything else that I did or made or created and put in that account would be gone in an instant. It was not a one-time grab. It was a continuous order. So believe me, I felt obliterated. So I understand that particular feeling. But all of that creates this feeling of resistance. Like you can't start over. You can't do it again. The universe is stacked against you. You'll never make it. You were stupid to try. All the people that were saying whatever they were saying, they're all right. You know the drill. Okay, so then what? You can listen to the voice that says you're done, stay small, you were stupid to try. Why do you think you could write a book or create a business or make a lot of money or make a difference or whatever it is? You know how I know how that feels? Because it's universal. You have felt it. I have felt it. Maybe you're feeling it right now, which is why I wanted to do this episode on obliteration. And then figure out what to do and where to go from there. So the first thing I want you to feel and understand to the depths of your heart is you're not alone. You're not alone. Obliteration is often the very last gate, the very last threshold to real mastery. Like it seems to be a rite of passage that you have to go through, you, me, all of us, have to go through some form of obliteration before you get into the rarefied air. You can call it the dark night of the soul, where you question everything, shadow work, where the shadow takes over everything, your shadow soul and all that stuff. All of that are different names for this same circumstance. But you felt it and maybe you're feeling it now. So then here's a couple of things I want you to think about. You know what that feels like. So here's a question. Is this your end or is it your crucible? Like this picture behind me, fire and, is it your end or is it your crucible? Because gold is refined in fire and it has to be hot enough to burn off the dross. So you need to decide, what if this obliteration is a sacred rite of passage? What if this obliteration is actually your invitation? What if the obliteration is to blow off everything that you don't need to be doing and give you the space and the heart and the thinking to start again with inspiration and do something different, better, more powerful, more meaningful, more impactful? What about that? Those are questions to ask at this moment. Now, here's a couple of others. Who is it that decides your worth when your work lies in ruins? Who is that? So others may be dissing you or dismissing you. Do they really own your worth? Are we handing them the keys to our worth? Who decides that? So your work's in ruins, and who decides your worth? Are you going to give it up and drink the poison that says you're only as good as the opinions of others, or are you going to claim it for yourself? What if losing everything is the door to becoming everything? Now, you notice I didn't say having everything. Having is no big deal. It's not that important, because the having can disappear in an instant. Who you are is who you are. Like the old saying, wherever you go, there you are. Who you are is who you are. If you or I, we have a different face, we show to this person, our spouse and work people, and when we're alone, we don't know who we are. That's sad and dangerous. I remember that. I remember in one of the heydays where I had a big, high-ranking job and made a lot of money, and I was also addicted to different substances and had a horrible life internally. I remember coming home for one big victory lap of doing my stuff on the world stage, going in my office at home and closing the door and saying, I don't know who I am. I don't feel anything. Dress me up, 3-piece Armani, I can go downtown and do whatever. And when I come home and the lights are out, I actually don't know who I am. So who you are being is the only thing that matters. So those are some questions to ask yourself in those moments. Now, when you're on the floor and you're obliterated and you feel like that and the resistance is sitting on your chest like a 1,000-ton monster, here are the next steps. The first thing you have to do is get up out of the rubble. And I'm using the sort of metaphor of destruction, maybe because there's so much of it on the news. I mean, we have earthquakes and we have wars in several places. You know, we had a short one in Iran. We have the Israel-Gaza thing. We have the unspeakable tragedy in Ukraine where some idiot, for greedy, stupid reasons, is just bombing the crap out of the civilian population. But anyway, it doesn't matter. There is a perpetual scene of blood and violence and death and ruin before our faces if we watch any television at all. And I watch very little, but I do watch a little, not every day, but most days, just to see what's going on. So let's use that metaphor, the rubble. You find yourself on your ass in the middle of a pile of rubble. What are you going to do? What is the path out of zero? Well, the first thing is, let's call this reset to zero. Because when you're flat on your back and you're blown out, you're below zero, right? No hope. Everything's gone. Your will, your hope is destroyed. I have a couple of friends who lost everything in the California fires that happened a few months ago. They lost everything. And so they were reset below zero, everything obliterated. It's hard to imagine how that would feel, but there are people that have it all the time. Tens of thousands in those situations, and giant earthquakes and wars and everything. So let's get to how do we reset to zero? So the first thing we have to do is drop the drama. That doesn't mean you don't feel sad. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But the part of the drama that you could immediately drop is the anger and blame. You can drop the, how come this happens to me? You know what I mean? You can drop that victim game. You can drop the anger. All of that. Grief and sadness at loss is normal. But the blame, the anger, the viciousness, the self-recrimination, the guilt, the shame, whatever version of that doesn't serve. It doesn't serve anything. And it's a poison chemical cocktail. Shame, guilt, or rage and anger, revenge, bitterness, hopelessness, helplessness, all of those are neurochemical cocktails that are really poison. They eat you from the inside out. You know someone that's been bitter over and over again for years, maybe decades. They're ruined. And they stay ruined until, they embark on a specific path of healing. So the first thing to do is let go of the drama. Okay? Let it go. If somebody did something wrong, it's not ours to punish. Somebody else will figure that out. If you did something wrong and it resulted in this catastrophe, forgiveness is the answer. We all have to do what we can to repair it, but if you're obliterated, there isn't much to do, is there? You might owe some people some apologies. They may or may not accept them. People might owe you some apologies, and they may or may not even think so or give them. None of that matters. What matters in you or me is that we let go of the energy of revenge, hatred, bitterness, shame, guilt, forgiveness. Just drop it. All that other feeling just adds weight and difficulty to our forward progress. I promise. And when we wake up every day with half our strength gone because we're still angry or frustrated and our hearts are filled with shame or frustration or revenge or any of that, it saps half our energy. So we're half-assed every day or less. You know what that's like. All right, so that's number one. Drop the drama. And drama is sort of the euphemism for all that extraneous feeling that doesn't do anything. And I'm not counting grief. That Grief is real, and you might need however much to process that. The second thing is, let's shrink the scale, the size of this. I don't mean the size of the catastrophe. We've already, stipulated that it was obliteration, and you are powerfully destroyed in some way, right? Some terrible thing has happened to you, and you are in a bad way. What I mean by reduce the size is, let's talk about micro wins. So if you're 10 floors underground, you've been obliterated, you're not to ground zero, you're ground -10. Every step toward the surface is a win. Every day you get up and do anything that's positive and forward moving is a win. So adopt the idea that micro wins matter. One of the things that we tend to do, maybe because of the culture we live in now, we have this idea that everything needs to be handled quickly. Everything is download and double clicks, solved. And if it's not that way, something's awfully wrong. Because we live in a download and double click world, and we got AI that can do everything for us right now in like a minute and a half. Or, at worst, all the problems have got to be able to be solved in the length of a TV sitcom. I mean, you see it all the time, right? So none of that's true. What is true is that every step in a positive direction is one step closer to victory, period. Now, you may chafe and say, it's not fast enough, it's not fast enough. That, again, is a story and a game. What I notice is that if I just focus on the next little step, little wins, before very long, many hours, many days, many weeks have gone by, and I have 100 or 200 or 300 wins. And so they stack up quickly. I invite you to think about that. Let them stack up quickly. Let other people say and do whatever they're going to say and do. You couldn't care less. Stack up your wins, little though they are, quickly. So that's another step. Do one tiny thing excellent today. Okay? Sometimes we have a great big project or thing we want to move, and we heave with all of our might, and we can't. If we broke it up in little pieces, we can take a little over here, 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 and pretty soon we've moved the whole blob. And sometimes, in fact, often, when we go at things with the idea that we've got to do it all at once, we're working against ourselves. All right, so micro wins, celebrate every little win, and don't get stuck on the big stuff. Another thing is, I talked about it a minute ago about forgiveness. You can also call it sacred forgetting. Now, that doesn't mean you forget you put your hand on a hot stove and it burned. It doesn't mean you forget that that person betrayed you, so you jump right back in business or in bed with them. Sacred forgetting is allowing yourself to forget your failed efforts. You were trying. And so rather than cherish the memory of the failure, yeah, there's some lessons, but we go beyond lessons and we tie our worth. Every failure becomes an indictment of our intellect, of our intention, of our love, of our commitment. And that is destructive. So we can drop that. Okay? Sacred forgetting. Allow yourself to just forget the failure. But that's in the past. Nothing before this very second you can change. You can do something in the future to correct the problem, but whatever has happened is finished. So we can either allow the weight of that past thing that was unpleasant or obliterating to sit in your face, or you can just say, what can I do now? What can I create from this moment, however small? Now, one of the things that you can do that I've done when you're trying to release something, okay, I was doing some very, very deep emotional work about some very painful things in my past. Write it all down. Write it down, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages in the most unrestrained, visceral language that reflects the pain, the disappointment, the bitterness, the rage, the fury, the betrayal. Just write it down and write and write and write. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 pages. I don't care. You can get that done in a couple of hours at most. Then take it and have a ceremonial burning. And as it burns and the ashes float away, release the ghost, release the pain. I found that to be incredibly effective. Another way to handle that resistance that we were talking about is personify it. In the Pressfield books, he talks about it like it's a thing, right? And I like that representation, because then it's like I can talk to it. I can say, screw you. You don't run me. You're not in charge here. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you said before. You're not in charge. Now, you may need to say that 2 times, 5 times, 100 times. It doesn't matter. Keep saying it, because the truth is you are sovereign. WIPOS, worth, identity, possibility, ownership, sovereignty. So if you need to say something 57 times, do it. You're still the sovereign. To quit before it has its effect is to abdicate your sovereignty. It's to give up on the truth that you own your life. It's to give up on the reality that you create your experience, and so do I. So never give up on yourself. You're too important. You're too valuable. You're too beautiful. You're too capable. Talk to it. The resistance. I see you. Beat it. You don't run me. Not now, not ever. We're finished. And you can do that even if 5 minutes from now you got to do it again. Even if right away there's another, weight on your chest and somebody reminds you, or you remind yourself of all of that baggage. You don't have to keep it. And the more you choose not to keep it, the more powerful that ritual becomes. So we've got so far micro wins and sacred forgetting tied to forgiveness, and then come on to personal terms with resistance. I'm going to tell you a little story about something that happened to me several years ago. I suffered with decades of depression and self-sabotage, believing I was not good enough, and creating big career success and then burning it down, literally getting fired again and again and ruining not only jobs but relationships, because I had this conviction that I didn't deserve anything good. It was unwritten and unspoken, but it was underneath all my no matter what I built, this was this rumbling underneath that I sucked. So one day I went on a walk, and when I left, I wasn't really intending to do what I did. But as I walked, I decided to go for a long walk, and it turned into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 miles, and took 3 or 4 hours. And I sat on a bench, different benches at different times. But what it turned into is I started asking myself, what are these voices in my head? Like, why are there all these things? Like, I want to do something, and then there's another voice that says, oh, don't do that. You can't. Put it off. Oh, it'd be more fun to do this. You know what I'm talking about, the procrastination or the you're not good enough voices, all that kind of stuff. So here's what I did. I said, well, let's just have a conversation, because sometimes when those different voices would happen, some of them would feel sneaky, like they had to hide, and others would feel pushy. And so it felt like there were all these, different voices belonging to different people. Now, I don't know if that borders on nutcase, schizophrenic, multiple personalities or whatever, but just roll with me here. So I started having a conversation with what I felt like were different characters, and I wanted to make it fun. So I imagined a one-person play that turned into a multi-person play. I'm in front of a big audience in a big theater, and I'm kind of the narrator. And each of those voices I invited on stage, and I treated it not like a theater, but like an Oscar performance where every person, which was one voice in me I invited on stage, they came on stage to get an award. And so the whole story would take quite a bit of time to tell, and it went on for several hours. But as I had these conversations, about why I accomplished things, why I didn't, what the procrastination was, what the meaning was behind it, who was helping me forward, who was holding me back. And I gave them each different names. And so I ended up with 4 people on stage. Maybe you have 47. I don't know. I had 4. One was me, the narrator. One was called the creative. One was called the obsessive. And the one that we're talking about here was called the protector. And so the dialogue went on for a long time, and I realized that each of these characters had a staff. And the protector had hundreds, maybe thousands of people on staff. And it felt like a stage because all the protector staff was like stagehands. They were all dressed in black so they wouldn't be seen. And to make a long story short, it was a unbelievably powerful, meaningful, and life-changing conversation. So I was able to ask each character, what do you want? Well, the creative, of course, wanted to just bring forth ideas and turn them into reality, change the world, have fun, do the music that I love to do, and on and on and on, right? The obsessive was the one that was worried about bills and paying bills on time and making sure all the stuff was as it should be and everything else. And you can figure out the rest. And the protector, as it turns out, was only concerned with one thing. I'm just protecting you. Protecting. And finally I asked, well, what are you protecting me from? And one of the keys to this convo was it was all light and easy. Nobody was wrong. Everybody was being celebrated. Everybody got an Oscar, right, as they came out on stage. And it was funny because the answer shocked me, the narrator. I know all the characters are me, right? But the answer shocked me, and the protector said, I'm protecting you from being nothing by doing nothing. And I had to think about that for a while. And the being nothing essentially is dying, vanishing, being not important, having all the not good enoughs that I'd heard in my life be actually true. And so the idea that the protector had was the ultimate rejection of everything you do sucks. He was protecting me from that by procrastinating, doing nothing, putting off things, distractions, and etc. That revelation and that personification of all those really helped me. Now, if you'd like to know more about that, I can tell you details and how I accomplished that and why it mattered. It was very long. It took several hours. I created new agreements between all the parties, and it's changed my life forever. Now, the reason I told you that is I was talking about making new friends or terms with that resistance, that feeling of, you're going to fail. And this is how I did it. So everybody got celebrated. We were all together, and I made a new deal. And what I asked the protector to do was protect me from dying with my music inside, from not singing the song I came to sing. So those are some ways to get from the defeated place of minus 10 floors up to 0. Micro wins, sacred forgetting, and just come to terms with the resistance. Everybody feels it. When catastrophe strikes, it's worse than others. But you control the narrative. You get to decide. And here's the truth. The worth of your soul is not dependent on your outcome. It's not dependent on your production. You are infinitely valuable as you stand right here, right now, because you're a child of God. You have infinite worth. Your divine soul is from infinity to infinity, and nothing can change that. It doesn't matter if everything you try to create right now fails. Your worth is infinite, and nothing will change that. So your baseline, you need to own, well, you don't need to do anything, but a possibility is to own that baseline of your worth. So now, those and others, but those are tools that I use to get back to 0. So I'm at least not in self-loathing, and I'm at least not in overwhelm, and I'm at least not blown away. Then we have to start the idea that there is a place to go from here. You may not see it immediately, but the truth is, you are still standing here. Your heart is beating. Your mind is working. And if you do the work we just talked about, it will no longer be full of, I hate myself, I suck, who's going to know? Everybody's going to think I'm, fill in the blank. That will have quieted down. And if it hasn't yet, go back and do that again. Micro wins. What can I do now to move forward even a little? Choose to forget. Choose to forgive. Choose to love, especially yourself. And then take control. That resistance doesn't have to run your life. It really doesn't. All right, so here's the next set of steps to go forward. And I want you to take some notes and think about this wherever you are in relation to an obliteration event. Okay? Even though you're back to zero, you're not out of the forest yet. You're not back to creating like you were. You've established the fact that you're breathing. You're not destroyed. All right? All right. So you are standing, your heart's beating, you're still breathing. The first thing to do there is to just breathe. Breathe in that truth. You're alive. You have more opportunity. Life isn't over. You're a child of God. You matter. And all that happened is that particular thing you were doing, however big it was, didn't work. That doesn't indict your worth. It doesn't indict your intelligence. It is very simple. That thing didn't work. Now, that might mean you lose a project. That might mean you lose a job. And even if all that's true, you are not valueless because something you tried to do failed, even when it failed spectacularly. Your intrinsic value is infinite. And that's true even if you lose a job or a contract or whatever. The trouble is we conflate our personal value with our material and project success, and that's a mistake. All right, so even though you're breathing, let's get moving now in a positive direction, because from this place here, we have to then start to rebuild. I mean, you're free to sit at ground zero after you've gotten out of the basement for a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade, wondering what to do. It's dangerous because the more you sit at zero, the easier it is to slide back down the hole. So here's some truths I want you to remember. There is life after obliteration. Not despite it, but because of it. Every obliteration event, however severe, is a crucible of growth. Hear me. That's a true thing. You're infinitely valuable. Every obliteration event that I have or you have, where our hopes and dreams are completely smashed to the floor, it is a chance to grow. It is a growing, lifting event if we allow it to be. It really is. The choice that we have is, are we going to choose to look at it that way? Or are we going to choose to be angry and frustrated and blame others, God, the universe, whatever? Okay, so there is life after obliteration, but we have to go find it. And what I know from personal experience about obliteration, some disastrous thing like that, is it can either ruin us or refine us. If we let it ruin us for a while, that's not weird, that's normal. Growth starts when you allow it to refine you. Who did it make me? How can I find a pony in this pile of horse crap? What is possible here? It is not until we start asking those questions from a neutral place, not, what the freak am I going to do? That doesn't count. But from a neutral place, what is possible here? Even a little step forward. So that is a key element. Now, the next thing, after you say, I'm not going to stay, I'm no longer in the basement, I'm not going to stay at zero, I'm going to choose to allow this situation to refine me. I'm not holding grudges. I'm not forgetting if it's a dangerous situation. Don't go there again. But there's a complete difference between the learning and hating or being angry with or seeking revenge on. Those are poison. Avoiding something dangerous is not poison. It's intelligence. So micro steps get you back up to zero, realizing that there is a future. There is a possibility. There is growth available. for you right here, right now. That's an eternal truth. That's just not something I pulled out of my balding, empty head here. Ding! It's an eternal truth. You can stand again, and you can move forward again. Now, here's how I want you to think about this, or I'm offering you the invitation to think about this. Number one, here you stand. In the ashes, battered, maybe you're even ashamed. But if you've done the things we talked about, you've climbed back up to the ground at least, you're at zero or a little above, and the truth is, listen up, you're still breathing. Your story isn't over. Burn the failed blueprint. Burn the relationships if they were betrayals. Don't sit around with baggage of resentment, hate, anger. I'm going to get even, because this is your proving ground. Your decision right now is not just to survive it, but seize it, learn from it, build on it, and then ultimately you're going to reign over it. It comes from the sovereign. You're the sovereign of your life unless you give it away. So get back up to zero, and then start the path forward with a commitment to win. A commitment to reign. Now, I've given you the steps from obliteration to zero and to the very beginnings of forgiving, gathering your strength, remembering your sovereignty, choosing to love yourself fiercely, and then beginning to move forward. You are not finished. Failure is not final. And what we're going to do next in the other episode, so this is, I think, this is episode 996 and 998, not next one, but 2 episodes. We're going to do the next part. So I want you to go listen to that. I had a guest in between. So 998, this is where we're going to start right now where we are and go all the way to infinity. We did the episode here on this obliteration because we all have been there. It is a necessary learning and proving ground, testing and refinement opportunity for all of us as we move forward and you take sovereign control and create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe,
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on the ground.